Hey guys, how are you? My name is Ryan. I am going to be your FFE draft coach. I'm going to walk you through the draft process, how it works, give you some tips on how to draft for this league for FFE and the variations of gameplay versus a standard 12 or 14 team league you might be playing in. I am joined now by my producer, Bob. Bob is here to help out. He is not a fantasy football expert. He's kind of a novice, but has a team coming in this year and he wants to learn how to draft. So just like you, he's here to kind of learn and ask questions, and hopefully we can communicate best of draft. Bob, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Let's do this.
Of course. Just to give you a little bit of credentials for me, my name is Ryan. I am the two-time global quarterfinalist and one-time global runner-up for FFE. I've been playing since 2013. I know the game pretty much inside and out. You might have seen me in the intro videos or the rule videos for FFE. Bob is my producer. We do those videos. And so I have a lot of experience with the Fantasy Football Evolution product. And so hopefully I can transfer some of that experience over to you. Hopefully you can make it easier for you to learn how to do things, how to draft, how to make some of the decisions that this league will require versus another league you might be playing in this year or have been playing in before. So that's what I'm here to do. Bob's here to make sure that I am clear and that I answer all the questions for the basic people. So without further ado, let's go ahead and pull up FFE. Here we go. Boom. So here is the FFE. Here's the home page. We'll start with the home page. This is what you're going to see when you log in. You're going to have the basics, the private competition hosting site all the way through, and you're going to click on mock drafts. If you want a mock draft. If you've already seen this and you want to do your full draft, that'll be a different way to go. But we want you guys to practice on some mock drafts first to make sure you understand what's going on. If you watch the video or know a little bit about the rules, a couple of major differences between this draft and other drafts. The first one is that you're the only person in the draft. It's you and 11 cutting edge AI artificial intelligences that are going to draft against you. And they are programmed to not be the same. So every time you draft a mock draft, a real draft, you versus someone else in your league, it's always going to be on a variation, a variable of what could happen, because these are not programmed to do the exact same every time. Some are programmed to be aggressive, others to be a little more conservative, and just it's going to be a different batch every time. So you have to, you know a few things. The rankings are going to be the same. So if the rankings are one way in my draft, they're going to be the same way for someone else's draft if you're drafting at the same time. However, as we get closer to the season, those were going to change. You're going to have players that are getting, a lot of pop and camp are going to go from a lower rank to a higher rank. Players that are, not going to be here for COVID or going to be cut will obviously be going down on the draft board. So the closer you draft to the regular season, you might have some changes. So yes, it is true. Drafting close to the regular season will help you with what's happening right away. But also if you're drafting early, you can pick up some of those bargains that you might not have heard about until the season comes close. And we'll talk about some of those as we go on. The second rule is that in this one, you get to choose your draft position. So at FFE, they allow you to choose 1 through 12. And of course, you get the corresponding spot in a snake draft. You've done a snake draft before, Bob?
I have.
Okay, so you understand
Yeah.
if you pick 1, you're going to be 24. If you're going to pick 2, 23, and it just goes back just like a snake. No reversals, nothing back and forth. This is a standard snake draft, 20 rounds all the way through. So let's go ahead right now and let's create our team. If you click down here, create our team, and we'll just call this team FFE Draft Coach. All right, and we'll create that team. So now we are set to go. And if we go right here and click Start Mock Draft, it tells us what spot to choose. So again, it shows us here from 1 all the way down to 12. In my history, I've done a lot of drafting at 1. You get the first player off the board, whoever you think it is. This year, if you draft 1, it's going to be Mahomes or it's going to be Lamar Jackson. And we'll talk about that in a minute. That's because quarterbacks are huge in this league. So that's what you want to do. If you really want one of those guys, you do that. And I think there's no problem with that. I've done a few mock drafts this year, and I think the smart position to draft is somewhere around 7 or 8. I have some other ideas for how I want to start the draft. And protect what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead, and with this draft, let's go ahead and go at 7. Okay, so I'm going to click on 7, and I'm going to click to start the mock draft. So we're loading right now, and this brings up the draft. So right, as you'll notice, as we start, people are drafting. It's already going. So on the right over here, you can see I'm going to move myself up. you can see what's happening right now. So the drafts have gone 1 through 7, and you can go over here to results, and you can see the players that have been drafted. It went Barkley, McCaffrey, Elliott, Mahomes, Henry, and Chubb. So this is very, very strange for this site, Bob, and I'll tell you why. In this site, quarterbacks are very, very highly touted because you can play 3 of them, and quarterbacks score more than other positions. The best quarterback scores about 100 points more than the best running back. And the third best, the 10th best quarterback scores more than the leading running back and receiver. They all score 4 points.
Are you saying for your flex positions, then you usually want quarterbacks?
Almost always. I mean, if you can find someone who's great, or you want to always play quarterbacks if you can. If you can get 3 strong quarterbacks, it's a really, really good idea. The way this one went, usually I drafted 7, and it's pretty much goes all quarterbacks up to me, and I can have my choice of the top players. But unfortunately for me at this one, or fortunately now, the players that I was looking for would be the McCaffrey and the Elliott running backs. But the good news for me, if I go back to the players that are available, my favorite player for the season in FFE is available, and that's Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for Baltimore. Had an MVP season last year, and he's a super stud player, and I am very happy to have him as my first pick. So I'm going to click on him, and it's going to tell me his ranking, his name, his team, and over here his bye week, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click draft player. Again, you'll notice as soon as I draft, over here in this right column over here, the draft keeps going. So the draft, other players are drafting, the other FFE robots, the AIs are drafting, and so you can see it's going through 14, 15, coming up, 16, 17. They'll get back to me there at number 18. All right, so we're back to me. And just so you know, if you want to stop right now and take a break, you can. You can stop the computer, head on out, come back for a snack, or you can come back in a week or 2. There's really no hurry on you. There's no clock. If you notice, you see nowhere on here is there a clock. It's not pushing us for speed, not pushing us to go fast. There's no one else that we're waiting on or waiting on us. It's really, really nice that we can do this whenever we want. So if we had a little bit of time now to draft and we wanted to leave and come back, we could do that. But we're not going to, since we're doing a mock draft here. We want to do this, you'd be able to see this. We're going to go ahead and start drafting. So if you go to the results again, we're going to see how it went down. After I went, it was Mixon, Kamara, Prescott, Jones, Kyler Murray. So you see a little bit of a quarterback run with Murray, Wilson, Watson, Wentz, and Ryan. So again, quarterbacks are going to go much higher. Matt Ryan would probably be a 10th round pick in a lot of regular drafts, but here he's going in the top of the 2nd round, again, because you can play quarterback. So if I go back to the players that are available and I go to the quarterback list up here on the right by clicking down and dragging to quarterback, it's going to show me that these are the guys that are available. Now, most likely, I want to get at least one more of these top guys, probably 2. But I don't want to sacrifice my entire team to do that. So what I'm going to do now is look at running backs and see who available here. Dalvin Cook is a 1st-round pick in almost every draft. He's looks like he's going to be playing, come back with a contract, no problem. Kenyon Drake and Miles Sanders as well. And then there's this guy right here, Clyde Edwards-Hilaire. Now, Clyde Edwards-Hilaire has been rocketing up draft boards because he plays for the best offense in football. And the other running back he was supposed to play and share time with has opted out of the season for the COVID-19. So he's the guy who I would love to target, but I have a feeling that he's going to be available in the next round. So I'm going to hold off on him. I'm going to go to wide receiver. And you're going to see here that a bunch of stud receivers are left, including the top wide receiver in the draft, who is Michael Thomas. So at this point, my goal is to take Michael Thomas this round, to go back and get Edwards-Hilaire in the 3rd, and then in the 4th, hopefully go back and get one of the starting quarterbacks to build my roster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so Michael Thomas is the top receiver on the board. I'm going to click him, and I'm going to draft him. Click on Michael Thomas, click on draft player. As we watch other people, you can watch them disappear off the board here. And the one thing about wide receivers, they're very deep in this draft. There's a ton of guys who can contribute, but you can get a top guy like that. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. Even though it's a half PPR and Thomas really excels in the point per reception format, he's still a monster and a beast here. So I'm going to go over to wide running back and kind of look at it out of one corner of my eye and hope that he's still there. So there's Edward Solaire, the 39th overall player. So I'm going to basically, in my mind, know that I'm drafting him, but I also want to go look at the quarterback situation to see who's available and who's left. So I go to quarterback. I see about 3 guys who I would consider, the next tier of quarterbacks to have on my team. And I'm going to get one of them. The question is, do I take Drew Brees and cross my fingers that Edward Solaire falls one more round? Or do I take Edward Solaire and know that I'm going to have to settle for someone like Kirk Cousins or Minshew or Carr?
It sounds to me like you already have your mind made up.
Well, yes, I would. Here's my problem. If Edward Solaire were about 7 down, I would pass on him. And all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quarterback. I think that quarterbacks are too important. You don't want to mess around and miss on one of the guys who can really play well. And we know that Drew Brees can be a stud. And taking Drew Brees, I pair him up with Michael Thomas, who I already have. So when they score, when the touchdowns are scored by Thomas, Brees gets points as well. So I'm going to draft Drew Brees right here. And again, really cross my fingers that Edward Solaire is available in this next round.
I guess that brings up a question.
Sure.
How good are these AI drafters? Are they mathematically perfect or mathematically great? Or are they just kind of what a random fan would do based on who they like?
Well, they're kind of programmed to be, specific to certain types of people that you see in a normal draft room. You have the very aggressive one who's going to pick like maybe the players he likes first. He's a big Cowboys fan, so he's going to pick a bunch of Cowboys first. Really out of order, but pick them. Or you have a guy who's basically right by the book. You see the rankings and you pick the highest ranked player every time because you for some reason you think maybe you're not smart enough. And the whatever the AI is doing, whatever the lists are telling you, your ranking list is telling you, you're going to do that. All right, so we've drafted Drew Brees. Here we go. We're going to check to see who's left in running backs. There it is. All right, so we lucked out. So Edward Solaire is available. I can look at wide receivers to prove what's going on. There's going to be some good players here too. Adams and Godwin and Galladay are great. I love them. But right now I have a good wide receiver. I need to have that running back. So I'm going to draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my top pick in the running back class. And as we watch, players are going. Jonathan Taylor, again, some guys are ranked way too high in my opinion, but that's just how it goes. Those will adjust as we get closer to the season. There's a lot of talent out there that's still available, especially when all the quarterbacks go early. You're going to be able to get guys who will go in the second and third rounds of a draft without the flex position, where you can get them in the 5th or 6th round of this draft. So at this point, if you look over at our team, we have our 2 quarterbacks that we like. We'd love to get a 3rd quarterback of one of this ilk if we can, or of at least a starting quarterback. Then we have Michael Thomas, who's a stud wide receiver. We have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's a stud running back. And on the running back board here, it looks like we got James Conner, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. These guys are all fine, but I think the guys down in this area, and from my perspective, are equally as good. And right now, if you're drafting today, you're almost always going to have David Johnson down here. He's number 91. He's going in the 4th rounds of a lot of regular drafts, but down here at 91, he's going to slip to this 7th or 8th round of this one. So I think pretty much he's our kind of eyeball on one of these. We'd love to get a Le'Veon Bell and a David Johnson, but we're for sure going to get David Johnson. So we're going to go over to wide receiver and see if any of the studs are left. And there are some good receivers available. Allen Robinson, I don't care for him that much, but he's definitely going high. Shark is good, but again, down here, these guys are all solid players. So without even looking at tight ends and quarterbacks yet, I'm going to tell you right now, we're almost for sure going to get a tight end or a quarterback this round because you're going to get a stud tight end. Let's find out which ones haven't been drafted. So both Kittle and Kelsey are available. Those are the 2 top tight ends in football. And to be able to get them in the 5th round here, they're just beasts. So we really want to figure out which of them we're going to get. I already have Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs. So, I mean, doesn't mean it's going to be anything less for Kelsey, but the way I draft, if I have 2 guys that I think are very similar, I'll take the one from a different team if they're going to be competing for points. And so I'm going to take George Kittle as my tight end. So I see I drafted him. He's on my board, and that's my team. So then we've taken Kittle. He's a stud. We're stoked to have him in the 5th round as our big tight end. It gives us just 3 monumental weapons. along with Jackson and Breeze at quarterback. So what we want to do now is revisit quarterback and see if there are any of the starting quarterbacks that aren't really pushing for a competition, like a guy like Tyrod Taylor. He's probably going to start this year, but he's being pushed by a rookie. Same with a player like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's being pushed by Tua, their number 7 overall draft pick. But I really want to see what's going on there, because it's really interesting to see who's available. Obviously, Eli Manning is ranked too high. He's not going to be picked. Nick Foles is a starter, but again, he's being pushed by a player like the former starter, Mitchell Trubisky, over there. So a lot of these guys here are not the guys that I really want to draft. I would love to wait a round or two and get a Fitzpatrick-Tua combination, but I don't want to spend these picks this early. There's going to be enough talent at running back and wide receiver that I want to get to where I can pick a couple of backup quarterbacks at the end of the draft and hope one of them hits, and just play one of these stud guys I'm going to get in my extra flex position. Although ideally it's quarterback, I don't want to overspend. So I'm going to go over here to running back and see who's available. All right, so at running back, it looks like there was a bit of a run on running backs, a big run on running backs. So really, Mostert's available, Ingram, Jones, Swift. Those are all timeshare guys. Dobbins, Howard, Akers. David Johnson is left. I will definitely pick David Johnson next round. I don't think that many running backs are going to go this round, since there was already such a huge run. So most likely, I'm going to click over to wide receiver and find the player I'm going to take. Now, you'll notice I haven't clicked defense or kicker at all. That's because we're not even thinking about them until the 10th or 11th round. Still much higher than a standard draft, but not here in this kind of situation. So we're at wide receiver. You got Allen Robinson, DJ Shark, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf. All these guys I think are going to be good this year. I think Mike Evans is great. He has a little bit of competition, though, no longer maybe the number 1 in Tampa Bay, with Chris Godwin being there. You got Tom Brady throwing to you, so I think that there's things that are going to change there. But the one guy who I like on here, who's really been a up and comer, and he's really poised for a breakout, is DJ Shark for Jacksonville. When he was playing with Gardner Minshew last year, he was super stellar, and I believe him to be a top 10 wide receiver this year. So I am going to bypass Robinson, say not right now to Evans and Cooper. I'm going to take DJ Shark as my second wide receiver, with the idea that David Johnson's going to be alive and available for me. I hope I see a lot of receivers go off the board right now. That's what I'm hoping. 2, 3. All right. Well, we lucked out with Clive Edwards-Hilaire. Let's see if we're going to luck out and still have David Johnson available for our number 2 running back. There he is. So David Johnson's right here. He is a guy I really like this year. When he was in Arizona and he was playing an assistant that worked for him, he was a stud. I think the system in Houston is going to benefit him. So I'm going to go ahead and take David Johnson. He's going to be a great asset for the quarterback over there, and just a lot of Deshaun Watson, and just a lot of chances to get a lot of extra pass catching. He's a great pass catcher. Basically, could be a wide receiver. So I'm going to take David Johnson for the Texans, number 2 running back. So as the picks are moving, David Johnson's a guy who, he had a really horrible season the last 2 years. The 2 years ago, I guess the 2017 season, he was a super stud, maybe the top running back in fantasy football. But some coaching changes and some injuries have kind of slowed him down a little bit. But when he's good, he's good. And I feel like he's going to be a stud player and a guy you're stoked to have on your team this year. So to get him this late as my number 2 running back, I feel pretty confident, especially with the talent that I have around him. So again, we're going to slide over and take a look at the quarterback position just to see what's happened. So not a lot of action at the quarterback. It's pretty much the same as when we left. I'm tempted now to see if I could do a Tua Tagovailoa and a Ryan Fitzpatrick combo. And you say, well, you might ask why I draft 2 quarterbacks from the same team. It's a good question. When I was talking about earlier, you want to have 3 starting quarterbacks. You want to be able to have that. And right now I have 2, and everyone else on this board of quarterbacks is a questionable quarterback. One might be a starter, but has another guy who's looking to take his job soon, a guy who they spent a lot of draft capital on or paid a lot of money to. And so if I were to go ahead and take Tua and then come back and have Fitzpatrick available to me, I would guarantee having the Miami starting quarterback on my team. So the question you ask is, does spending 2 draft picks right now and foregoing other players make sense? That's the gamble you have to take. I think in this league, with the fact that quarterbacks are going to score, I think you do it. Because if you go in here, let's say you go look at running backs, these guys right here, I don't want any of them. They don't really appeal to me. I'm pretty much going to be, chasing some of these guys who are lower ranked for running backs and maybe taking three or four of them, as opposed to trying to get any of these guys who are, at best timeshares, and they can't really be counted on to do anything specific. So I'm going to pass on them. Now, wide receiver will be interesting because there'll be a lot of good players up here. Calvin Ridley, Schuster, Kupp. Those are all star players. But I'm totally content to pass on them and have someone down here like T.Y. Hilton, A.J. Green, even a Darius Slayton as my third receiver. And again, I'm not going to look at kicker or defense. If somehow Travis Kelce were available, I'd pick him up here. But obviously, all the other good tight ends are gone. We're now to that clearly second tier. So, having looked at all that, I'm going to go back to quarterback, and I'm going to draft Tua because he's higher ranked. Although I'd much rather have him on my team, I'm still going to draft Tua because I want to make sure that I can get him coming back. So, there is Tua Tagovailoa, rookie out of Alabama, quarterback of the Dolphins. But I'm watching quarterback here just to make sure and cross my fingers that Fitzpatrick is still available. And he probably will be. There goes Manning. Oh, no. It did not work out. So for the first time in the draft, we have gotten, a little bit blindsided. But that's okay. Things happen. You adjust and you move on. The first thing that comes into my mind is to take Tyrod Taylor here, because now I have a guy who's probably going to start the season as the quarterback for the Chargers, and you have a guy named Tua who'll probably end the season. So hopefully their transition time will be similar. Or if Tyrod Taylor has a great season and stays in quarterback and their rookie can sit on the bench for a year. We're not sure, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But I do want to look at this running back situation, see who's available here. Again, nothing that excites me. They might excite you, but they don't excite me, so I'm going to pass on that. Wide receiver. So I still think that if I draft a quarterback now, I will still have a chance to get either A.J. Green or T.Y. Hilton here, which I think is fine with me, players that I like. And there's plenty of guys down here who I think are going to contribute. So I'm going to go back to quarterback. And something that would never happen in a regular draft, in the 9th round, I am going to draft Tyrod Taylor of the Chargers. At this point, we've taken our quarterbacks. We probably won't invest in a quarterback till maybe very, very late in trying to get a backup, kind of a dartboard shot for a backup quarterback. The running backs are probably going to be the same guys. People I'm not excited about. Really, if I'm looking at this group right now, I'm targeting Zach Moss. I'm targeting James White. He's a guy I'll probably get for sure. And even really with this group, I'm targeting Nyheim Hines. We'll talk about him later, but he's the guy who's going to be playing with Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis. And Indianapolis, Phillip Rivers is notorious for throwing to running backs. And so I think he's going to have a good shot as like a backup, a guy you can plug and play when you have a bye week. We'll talk about that later. I have a feeling there's going to be a wide receiver that I want picking up right here. There you go. So we're wide receiver, the guy I've been talking about for the last couple of rounds. T.Y. Hilton is there. He's on the other side of his prime. There's no question he's not at his prime. But when he was in his prime, he was a late first, early second round pick a couple years. And with Phillip Rivers, I think he's going to be a guy who's going to flourish again. And he's going to be able to have a chance to catch some deep balls, also catch some short balls and run with it. But I think he's a really nice guy to slide in behind Thomas and Shark as our third receiver. So I'm going to draft T.Y. Hilton as our 10th round pick. So as we're finishing up the computer picks, let's stay on this page because I think that it's important to look at the receivers that are available and look at what they're going to offer as far as, there's 2 types of players that are left. One are going to be players that are high floor, but not quite a super high ceiling. and they're going to have other players that are low floor but very high ceiling, kind of like a gamble player. So a guy like CD Lamb could be a guy who gets 2 touches a game and has some good plays, but really is kind of a useless asset. But could also become the second player in their offense who catches a lot of balls, but he's in a crowded Dallas offense, and it's going to be hard for him to get going. Now, Brandon Cooks, on the other hand, is a guy who I think has a very high floor, being the 1 or 1A receiver in Houston. He's the guy that right now I'm targeting. If I was going to pick a wide receiver right now, that's who I'd get. I think that he's a guy who's going to be a great fill-in for what we got going on. We also notice on our board over here that we have DJ Shark and Hilton have the same bye weeks. So we'd really like to have a nice 4th receiver to plug in that week 7 when they're out. So anyone here who's week 7, like a Justin Jefferson, we wouldn't be getting him now because that would not fill in our needs. And actually, they wouldn't let us draft him anyway because you have to have a different bye week for that player. And if you notice over here, we've talked about it a little bit, but you have to draft these players. You have to draft 3 quarterbacks. You have to draft 4 receivers. You have to draft 4 running backs, 2 kickers, 2 tight ends, 2 defense, and 3 reserves. You have to draft those players. Now, these reserves can be anybody. They can be quarterbacks, defense, kickers, running back, anybody. But these players you have to draft, before the draft is over. You can't leave a spot out.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's say that we've drafted this far and we've got all these players we liked, and everyone else is just like, well, these are all just kind of leftovers. Could we start at the auto draft from here and just have the computer pick the rest of the guys, like say for the best odds scenario?
Sure. You can always go auto draft up here in the corner. There's let me slide this out of the way. There's an auto draft button right here. You click on that, and it'll draft basically like you're one of the other AIs. It'll give you an AI identity, and it'll draft your team all the way through. My recommendation, if you wanted to do that, and you say, listen, I know I love my team, which I really like this team, by the way. What you could do at this point is you could wait, and you could say, all right, I've drafted 10 rounds, so halfway through the draft. But what I want to do is I want to come back maybe closer to the regular season. Maybe come back, at the end of August. And what might happen is, as we're going, let's go over to running backs here. Let's say as between now and then, let's just say, let's say, okay, so Marlon Mack is here. So let's say that Jonathan Swift, the running back for Indianapolis, gets hurt. And now we know Marlon Mack's going to be the starter. Well, guess what? You've waited this whole time. You're up right now drafting Marlon Mack's on the board, and you're going to take him. And he's going to be great. Last year that happened with Jacoby Brissett, the quarterback for Indianapolis, when Andrew Luck announced his retirement. Brissett was like a 400th ranked player because he was a backup, but he ended up being like the 198th player. So he was still there in the 10th round if you had waited for your pick. Now, if you're going to turn your computer off, please remember this, folks. Make sure it's your draft pick. Make sure all the picks are done to you, because what happens is if you leave those players on the board and there's still 4 picks before it gets to you, when you come back, the computers are going to draft those players because they're the highest ranked players. Obviously, they're going to be there. So you want to make sure that it's on your turn. And so let's just show what we can do. If it was our turn, we come over here, we can go back, we can shut off our draft, and we can wait right here. We can turn the computer off. We can put it up. When we come back on, it's going to be right here, our draft. Now, this is a mock draft, but it'll be the same thing for your regular draft. It'll be set up the same place where you were. You come on it, you click on Continue Mock Draft, and we're back exactly in the same place. So it's gonna upload the page over here on the right. It's gonna show you what you've got, and there you are. Now you're in the exact same place, showing you everything. It's now on your all list, showing you all the players that are available, and you can proceed. Let's kind of review where we're at. Quarterbacks, backups, all backups. So really don't need to draft any quarterbacks for a while. Kind of stop thinking about those for a while. Running backs, again, a bunch of guys that I'm okay with. I think Zach Moss has a chance to be the starter in Buffalo, and I think that I really want James White as my 3rd or 4th running back. I think that's going to be fine. And in a real scenario, I might, get to James White and at that point be done and rest my team until closer to the season. So it's up to you. You have those chances to do it. Just make sure you do draft and finish your draft before the opening kickoff, because if you don't do that, then you can't play your team the first week. So we'll look at wide receiver. That's really what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Brandon Cooks. I think to have him as my fourth receiver and be able to kind of lay off wide receivers for a while and come down to some of these guys that are down here. A guy like Alshon Jeffrey, who's a stud receiver, but he's going to be out for a couple of weeks when the season starts, would be a great guy to have as a fifth player to fill in. A guy like having a guy like Alshon Jeffrey or even Emmanuel Sanders down here really makes, if one of these quarterbacks that doesn't work out, you can play them as your second flex, and it's a much better option than having to play someone who's a timeshare guy, third down back, something like that in that spot. But let's go just while we're here. We haven't looked at it. Let's go to defense. So we have seen some defenses go, as you can tell. San Francisco is the number one defense, and they're gone. One thing I want to tell everybody, if you're drafting today, and again, this is going to change. I think the rankings will change. The New England Patriots are a top 5 defense, and they're ranked down here. Whatever the formula is, that's what they got them down here. Now, that'll adjust at some point if people draft them more, but that's the team that I would say is going to be my second defense. I would love to get a good defense up here and a nice second defense here. Now, you can see the teams that are gone. The Niners are gone. The Bills are gone. The Steelers are gone. Those are the kind of the big 3 that everyone's drafting. So rather than take a defense up here, I'm going to pass on that and wait for the Patriots later. I'm going to go to wide receiver, and I'm going to take the guy I've been talking about for a while, and that's Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is notorious for having a great first year, whatever new place he goes to. He's been to 4 different teams, and that first year he's there, he has a great year. So I'm happy with this pick as my 4th receiver. So we're back in the 12th round to us. I am going to pass on quarterbacks. We talked about that. I'm going to pass on defense. I'm not really thinking about kickers. Tight ends, my backup tight ends are usually going to be a guy like Greg Olsen down here or an Eric Ebron. I'm not going to get with these guys. They could be fine, but there's two hit or miss. And I already have George Kittle, who's going to be playing every week for me, except for week 11. So Mike Gesicki's not even really an option. So we're looking again at running backs. At this point, I might invest in someone who I think could be a starter if everything works. A guy like Sony Michel, who might miss part of the season, is the guy who I might take here. And then a little bit later, going to get James White as his, backup / other backfield mate. So he's definitely an option here. Other guys, Peterson, Mack, Duke Johnson, Latavius Murray, Antonio Gibson. You know what? Here's a little advice for you guys out there. Pay attention to the news. We're recording this in early August, and just today, running back Darius Geis for the Washington football team, not the Redskins anymore. They haven't announced their name. Was arrested and then kicked off the team. So he's not going to be the running back. So Antonio Gibson, wow, I can't believe I thought about this. I'm glad I thought about this now.
All right, so where are the flex players that we've been talking about? What's their designation?
Okay, so over here on our board, you've got the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running backs, the kickers, the tight end, the defense, and the reserves. You're going to play 1 quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, 1 kicker, 1 tight end, and 1 defense. And then you have 2 flex positions, again, super flex. So you can play 2 quarterbacks or a quarterback and a receiver or a quarterback and a running back or 2, whatever you want. So any of the extra players that aren't starting for you can be your flex. So right now, if you were starting based on my sure team, it would be Lamar Jackson at quarterback, Michael Thomas and DJ Shark at receiver, Clyde Edwards-Hilaire and David Johnson at running back, George Kittle at tight end, and then I could choose from Drew Brees, who would be automatically my first, super flex player. And then I would either have to go with a guy like T.Y. Hilton or Brandon Cooks, depending on what their matchup looks like, or a player like Tua Tagovailoa if he's starting, or Tyrod Taylor. So you got to choose based on what's left from your regular group. But back to my other thought, Antonio Gibson's right here. He'll probably be available next round, but I don't want to risk it. I feel like he's going to be the starter for the Washington football team. And so I will go ahead and draft him. And I need running backs. So you see I only have 2. I'm taking Antonio Gibson as my running back. So do watch the news. Do watch the what's going on with players, especially this year with COVID. COVID's going to be a crazy year for guys bailing out and taking the option of just getting paid up front or paid for if they're a high risk player. So make sure you're watching out for that. So again, he would have been available, obviously, but I didn't want to risk it. So now I don't have to worry about these. Sony Michel's gone, so I'm really only looking at James White down here. So I'll be getting him a little bit later. If I go to wide receiver, I like these guys like Brendan Ayuk and whatever, but I have 4 receivers, so I don't really need to invest capital in those guys. I go to tight end. Again, I think mine are going to be down here, so I'm still okay to wait. Now, kicker is a chance. If you want to get a good kicker, not a bad time to do it. I'm not sure why Matt Bryant is here. I don't think he's going to be the kicker for Atlanta, but a guy like Greg Zuerlein from Dallas is a guy you might want to pick up because he's going to be, get a lot of chances this year. But I think I'm going to look over at defense. And the one team that I like this year in defense to have a bounce back year is the Chicago Bears. They have just way too many good players on that team to be as bad as they were last year. And I think that they're going to come back and turn around and do, a lot more than they've been doing. So my choices right now would be to take the Chicago Bears or take a kicker. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take the Bears as my first defense, knowing that I'm going to get the Patriots later. So I'm going to take the Chicago Bears as my first defensive team. Defenses, you want to really focus on teams that can create turnovers and get after the quarterback. And with a guy like Khalil Mack on the Bears, they can't be as bad as they were this last year. So I think they're going to be, upgraded significantly in playmaking like they used to do. So now, again, the Patriots are still down here. This is 3 or 4 rounds away. Don't have to worry about them. I go to kicker. Zuerlein's still there. So he's the possibility right here. In 99% of drafts, you don't draft kickers until the very end. But I got to tell you, in this league, you want to have 2 kickers that are good, that are, consistent, good players. The thing about kicker is there's a difference between a good kicker in real life and a good kicker based on what team he plays for. He's going to have a lot of opportunity. A guy like Brandon McManus is a really good kicker in real life, but for the last couple of years, Denver hasn't given him a lot of opportunity. So you want to have 2 good kickers. So Greg Zuerlein is the guy I'm really considering now. Let's go back just to make sure that our wide receivers and running backs are doing what they should be doing. Wide receivers are still plenty of guys down here for my other ones, and running back, James White's here. So he's about 2 rounds away. So right now at this point in the back of my head, I'm thinking we're going to go kicker. Then we're going to go probably either wide receiver or James White, and then we're going to go back and get the Patriots. So let's see what we got here. We are in round 14. Let's go ahead and go to kicker, and we're going to get Greg Zuerlein, of former Ram kicker, now for the Cowboys. So that's my 14th round pick. So we're at round 15. That means we have 6 picks remaining. And as you can tell, we have to fill the running back spot, the kicker spot, tight end, defense, and 2 more reserve players. So that's where we're at. And we're back to us, FFE draft coach. That's me. I'm your draft coach. Hopefully you've been learning a little bit from this and it's been helpful to you. So what we said before is we're going to look at wide receiver to see where we're at. Of this group, there's some players that can play and have some potential. A guy like Julian Edelman playing for the Patriots with Cam Newton might be a good option, but I can wait a little bit for him. But again, I think that Sanders and Jeffrey are guys that I'm going to look more focus on. So I'm going to forget the wide receivers, go to running back, see where James White is. He's right here. He's getting pretty close. He's a high potential. I want to make sure on the defensive front that there's not a big jump that I'm missing with New England. Nope, they're good. And make sure that my tight ends are still a little bit farther down. Greg Olsen, Eric Ebron. I'm okay with Eric Ebron as my second tight end because I have George Kittle. So I'm going to go to running back, and I'm going to get James White. Again, a really good player in PPR and a good player in FFE with a half-point PPR system. So we're in round 16. We got our 4th running back last round with James White. So we're kind of stacked up on our main players. We do need a kicker, a tight end, and a defense. And we doing at least one more wide receiver, I think. And I probably want to get another quarterback. But let's go over to defense to make sure the Patriots are still a little ways down, which they are. Let's go over to tight end to see who's over here. And there's Eric Ebron. So at this point, Olsen is gone. He's one of my guys down here. Ebron's the other one. I'm going to draft Eric Ebron as my number 2 tight end. He has bye week 8. My tight end has a bye week 11. Now, if he had a bye week 11, they wouldn't let me draft him. You have to draft 2 different tight end bye weeks. So Eric Ebron playing now with the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger has had a history of making tight ends very good, and Ebron's shown he can catch the ball. So that might be a good match. But if it's not going to kill me because I've got George Kittle playing all but 1 week. Hopefully, if he stays healthy. That is the risk you run playing in these kind of games, is that if they both get hurt, there's nothing else you can do. There's no free agents, no ad drops, no pickups. So that's pretty much how it goes. I do not want dictation. All right, so we are in round 17. We have 4 spots to fill: a kicker, a defense, 2 reserves. So let's go over and look at the defenses. Patriots are climbing up the board. I don't want to miss out on them, so there's a chance that I'll get them this round. I also want to look at kicker. Most likely, since I have Greg Zuerlein, I will come down here and be satisfied with a guy like McManus this year as my other kicker. He's a good real-life kicker. Kicks in Mile High Stadium, can kick some longer kicks, so I'll probably grab him later. Don't need a tight end. We're looking at wide receivers. You're looking at a guy, some of these guys down here. So, again, not going to worry about that till probably the last pick of the draft. Running backs, I'm pretty well full. I might look at a guy like Devonta Freeman. But, in reality, let me tell you something, Bob. I would have stopped by now. I would have stopped the draft, paused it, and waited till later. But I do want to go through this whole draft, kind of just making sure that we're thinking through the right things all the way till the end. So just to be able, and then a quarterback, again, you're going to take a gamble on a backup at some point. You could back up your own guy if you want. I don't think that's always the best plan, depending on who that player is. But I'm going to wait till, again, the last 2 rounds to get that. So I'm going to go back over to defense, and I'm, just to be safe, going to get the New England Patriots and draft them as my second defense, which is really my first defense. I think they're probably a higher touted defense than the Bears. But you can play matchups. You can play against better teams.
These rankings will all change as the season goes, or
I don't think every day, but they will alter themselves. Every few days or every week as players jump up the board. Again, especially with COVID this year, a lot of things are going to change. So they're going to be changing pretty rapidly. So kicker, reserve is what I need. My kicker is going to be towards the end. He's still going to be there. I don't worry about that. Quarterback, I really am actually okay with not drafting another quarterback if I didn't have to. You could draft a guy like Brissett, who would play and step right in knowing the offense if Phillip Rivers was to back out. All these other guys, whatever. So if I was going to draft a quarterback, I would draft Brissett. My wide receivers, as I'm looking at them, are super strong. I still worry about the bye week problem. If one of these guys were to get hurt and I couldn't play a receiver, it would be kind of a bummer. So let's look at those receivers again. Hardman and Watkins, inconsistent guys. For 1 week fill-ins, they're fine. But I'm going to, kind of move down the board. Deshaun Jackson, Julian Edelman, James Washington, Paris Campbell, guys who can all play, some upside guys. But I really am looking at, an Alshon Jeffrey or Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is the guy that if Thomas gets hurt, then he'd be okay with that spot. Or you could play them together 1 week if you had to in week 7. So maybe Emmanuel Sanders would be my pick here. So I'm looking to get Emmanuel Sanders, Brandon McManus, and then maybe I draft a running back. Like I told before, and we're going to go with Nyheim Hines. We talked about him as being a plug-and-play guy. Should be catching 4 or 5 balls a game, I would think, in the Phillip Rivers offense. So I'm going to draft Nyheim Hines as he's the highest guy left, knowing that I'm going to get a kicker and hopefully make that Brandon McManus and get another reserve player receiver and getting Emmanuel Sanders from the Saints. So as the clock goes moving through the draft and the computer picks are faster and good to go, I will go ahead and go to wide receiver, knowing that's where I'm going to pick next. Actually, I'm probably going to go to kicker and pick Brandon McManus as my kicker. He has a bye week 8. My kicker's got a bye week of 10, so we're good to go with that.
They should add a button to this that says, "Hey, wait, I want this to be real. Here."
Oh, absolutely.
Make this team real. Click.
Make this my real team. I'll pay for it right now. And then you pay for it on the spot. They should do that. This team,
Right.
I would love this team. I feel really good
Right.
about this team.
Right.
So anyway, so now we're on our last pick. We're in round 20. We have only one reserve spot to fill. We have a backup quarterback, a backup running back. And now we're going to go to our wide receiver, and the guy we've been talking about for a while, Emmanuel Sanders, helps us out because it gives us insurance if Michael Thomas gets hurt, because we have so much draft capital on him, picking him so high, but also it gives us a chance to play them together if Brandon Cooks were to get hurt as well. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Emmanuel Sanders, my final draft pick. And we can see it over here on the left. You can click on results, and what the results will do is go from the beginning of the draft and show you the draft results. As we talked about before, these exact results right here might be very different. In fact, what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to show you a mock draft that I did before. So if you look at this picture right here, and Bob, you see you've got Barkley, McCaffrey, Elliott, Mahomes, Henry, Chubb. So you've got, of those six players, 5 running backs of your top 6.
Got it.
See that? So now I'm going to go to a draft that I did before just to show you that there are different ways that the computers make the draft, and they work off each other. If one person gets aggressive on quarterback, they know they don't want to miss out on him. So if I go to this draft, which is what I drafted under team Mach 2, and I go to results, the top 6 are 5 quarterbacks and 1 running back. You see how that works? So it can be all different. Saquon Barkley went number 1 in our draft. He went number 9 here. So it's not, again, things go all over the place. They're very, very different. There's no way to, that's the one thing about the AIs, there's no way to really, there's no algorithm you can use to really lock them in. You draft your own team regardless. You're not going to be able to predict what they're going to do. So you just, you use the list. You hope that, you're getting, no one's going to draft the 180th ranked player in the first round. They're not that crazy, but they could have 1 to 2 round, variability for which players they're drafting. So you might see a guy go and set the round 2 of one draft and round 4 in another, and that would not be completely out of the ordinary. Does that make sense?
Got it.
So again, we're looking at this player. This is the first round of this draft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the first 12 were quarterbacks. Okay, that's this draft. In our draft that we just did, click on it, bring it back up, go to results, and we see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the first 12 were running backs. So the one thing that tells you is that you don't have to pick a wide receiver in the first round. If you want a receiver, you wait till the second. There's going to be plenty of good ones available, or the third round even. But running backs and quarterbacks are the premiums. And I think more likely than not, you're going to see that quarterback situation working that way more than you are the other way. So hope I answered any questions I could for you. I hope you kind of walked through my thinking. I think that, if you could play this team in your league, in your private league, I think you'd be pretty solid. I would be very, very surprised if you weren't at least top 2 or 3 teams making the second round and scoring enough to go to that final tournament, which is really what you're aiming for when you draft your team. So that's what we got. I'm gonna kick us out of this share here. Take you back on full screen with me, Bob, and just any questions that you can ask now about what happened, anything you saw that you weren't quite sure about, or you feel like maybe you're ready to go and draft your own team now?
I feel like I'm ready to go. I'm
okay.
I'm excited for the season.
Well, I'm not. I feel like this is something that take what I've done and use it to the best of your ability. Use it to win. I'm here to help you. That's my goal. I would help you win your league. So if I can do anything I can, please follow my advice. But more importantly, understand what you're doing. Just know how the draft's going to work, and know that you can take your time. Do it. Do it when you have free time. Take your pause. And bring it back up. All right. Well, that was our mock draft for this year. My name is Ryan. This is Bob. We are happy to be with you, and we hope you have a great year this year with Fantasy Football Evolution. And we're so stoked you're playing, and you guys are going to have a great time playing, because it's really one of the coolest games around. All right.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.